Welcome back to the Running Wine Mom podcast. I'm your host, Samantha Cieslinski, aka the Running Wine Mom. Today, we have a remarkable guest, Gina Mundy, an attorney, best-selling author, wife, and mother of three, specializing in childbirth cases. Gina's unique perspective on childbirth and her proactive approach to helping parents have a safer experience sets her apart. Join us as we explore not only the legal aspects of her work, but also delve into her passion for wine, her personal life, and the wealth of knowledge she shares for her book, A Parent's Guide to a Safer Childbirth. Welcome, Gina.
Hey, Samantha. Thank you for having me. I'm excited for our conversation today.
Yes, we have so much to talk about, and I think that the listeners are going to learn so much from you. Before we get into the main part of the podcast, to start each episode off, we have our wine, and win of the week. This is where we share our favorite wine or drink of the week, and then we WHINE about anything that's going wrong and what our win is. So grab a glass, take a deep breath, and let's get started. What is your WINE wine of the week?
Oh, definitely. Chloe from Italy. It's a Pinot Grigio. Oh my goodness. And they do have one as a Sauvignon Blanc from Marlborough, New Zealand. And that is equally as amazing. So yeah, by far those are my two go-to wines lately.
I think I've had the Chloe Pinot Grigio before, and it's really good.
It's actually,
What's
I
your
think it's too good because it's so smooth. It goes down
Yeah.
too fast. And then all of a sudden you're like rocked. Be careful if you
Yeah.
have a bottle. Be careful. Goes fast.
Easy to drink one on your own. I get it.
Mhm.
As I was saying earlier, I'm doing dry January, so I have a hydration in a wine glass for today's episode. So sadly, not drinking wine this month. Maybe once or twice I will, but
I tried that. It lasted 2 days.
it's okay. There's nothing wrong with it. So when I was looking up stuff about you, you did mention wine in some of your bios, which I thought was so cool. You shared some of your memorable experiences and from different visits, and I saw something that stuck out to me was you liked Niagara on the Lake, and my husband and I have been there before, but I feel like nobody's ever talked about it. I don't know, like I've never heard about it outside of the fact when we went up there one time. Tell us about like any of your favorite wineries or about maybe your visit to Niagara on the Lake real quickly.
Oh yeah, we were blown away. We had no idea. Kind of saying we were just going to go see the waterfall.
That's
And
what we did.
then yeah, right? Me being a huge wino, we get to go see the waterfall and they're like, "Hey, there's some wineries over there." And we went and it was absolutely incredible. Two sisters, Trius, Mary Neeson, Wayne Gretzky has his winery
Yeah,
out
yeah,
there.
that one was really cool.
Yeah, there's the one from Italy. I'm drawing a blank,
Forget.
Italian looking thing. It was amazing. It's like a castle. But yeah, no, we stumbled on it and then fell in love. So I'm in Michigan, so technically that area is only 4 hours from my house.
Wow,
I
that's
know,
nice.
right? So we can just shoot over there, drink wine for a weekend, get out of the house away from the kids,
Yeah.
reset and then, smuggle all the wine back. Oh,
Yeah, I couldn't believe I never had heard of it. And even when I was like looking up stuff, because when we went to go to Niagara Falls and um, someone said, "Oh, check out Niagara on the Lake." I'm like, I don't know. I saw this that they said we should go. Let's try it. It was just beautiful. And then like the houses nearby I thought were really pretty too by the water. So if
it's
anybody
an
wants to visit,
amazing place. And yes, when I say it to anybody, nobody knows. No one's ever been there. I'm actually
yeah.
surprised you've been there. You're
Yeah,
probably one of the first
I've
people
never
that,
met anybody else. And when you said
uh-huh.
when I was reading, I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to like talk for a little bit about it just because I've never met anybody else that has gone there. Um, so what is your WHINE of the week?
I have two teenage girls, 19 and 15. That should just say it all. And I'm a pretty busy person, and if I could just get them to help me clean the house for once in my life, it would be such a win. So
Yeah.
literally, that's it. I'm running hard, and every time I walk by, they're on their phones, and I'm like, "Hi." So in Michigan, we haven't had school this week because of storms.
Okay.
So they just
They've just been
hang
home.
out.
Yeah.
Yes, in
Yeah.
the middle of all the laundry with dishes overflowing, garbage overflowing, bathrooms a total disaster. I'm
You're
like,
like, help me with something,
yeah.
please.
And well, if you say that, they just like freak. Like,
Yeah.
what? And I'm like, oh.
Well, I teach high school as like in
Oh.
addition, so I understand. Sometimes I'll say something to a student. It's the simplest thing. I'll be like, "Hey, can you just go, to do what you're supposed to be doing in this class?" I'm like, "Oh, excuse me. I'm so sorry for interrupting your time here,
Yeah,
but like we have stuff to do."
I
Um,
know.
so what is your win of the week?
My win? Oh, actually, it's kind of along the same line. So I was yelling at the girls yesterday, all irritated, like, are you serious? And then literally the wind came in because my 9-year-old, my son, we don't make him do the hardcore stuff. I hear some rattling in the kitchen. I'm like, is someone actually doing the dishes? Because I didn't ask anyone to do the dishes. And I walked down and he was actually just finishing them and shutting the
Oh,
dishwasher. And then he looks at me and he's like, where do I put the towels on the couch? So then
oh,
he's like, you show me how to fold them. And I'm like, sure. So he's heard me how frustrated I am. Cause I do tell the girls, I'm like, listen guys, I'm running like really hard right now. If you could
yeah.
just help me, that would be great. So, he let the dog out today like 8 times.
Oh,
He was home. So the dog had no accidents in the house. And so him
bonus points.
stepping up by, from me yelling at the girls, I'm like, that's a win.
Yeah. That's definitely a win. I feel like for sure. I feel, and as I was saying, my family dynamic is actually really similar to yours, with my sister and I and my brother being 10 years younger. And I feel like he's like the calm one of all of us, like
Yeah.
always like fell in line, did everything before my parents even asked. So maybe it's like a boy versus a girl thing. I don't know.
My favorite thing to him is like, Liam, you are perfect. Actually, the
Oh,
girls get upset, but
yeah.
I'm like, how can you not say that to him? Look what
Oh my gosh. It's we always say my brother, he doesn't walk, he floats. He's like the
Yeah. Oh, there has to be something with that family dynamic
it
because that
has
is
to be.
so he pretty much does. And all
Yeah.
right, yeah, that's
He
interesting.
sees all the mistakes that the older ones make. He knows
Hmm.
that's the only thing I can think of. So I like to ask my all of my guests, what is one struggle you've overcome leading to where you are now, and what are you most proud of in life?
Well, proud of in life is definitely my book. So as you
Yeah.
had mentioned in the intro, I authored a book called A Parent's Guide to a Safer Childbirth. And that is definitely one of the biggest things I'm proud of because it's based on my 20 years of experience as a childbirth attorney. So I do know that it will help parents have a healthy baby because, just so your audience understands, in a childbirth case, it's when something goes wrong during labor and delivery. So babies are not born healthy. And a lot of times the babies pass away during birth, and then in some cases, mom passes away. So, my professional career has always been extremely difficult. But I've seen these reoccurring mistakes, reoccurring issues. So I think getting my book out there and letting parents understand, what they are, really help them have a healthy baby. So that by far the proud thing. And then my struggle has always been my work life, parent, wife balance by far. I've always struggled with that. It's probably why my kids have a 10-year gap from youngest to oldest. Just, oh, rocking at the law firm. Great. But it's time to have another kid. Can I have another kid? I don't know what's going to happen. I'm up for promotion for partner, all that crap. But then you're like, okay, life's short. The other one's like almost 6. I better have another baby. All of that stuff has always been a struggle. So
Yeah.
that's definitely it.
And it's so interesting. I was having a conversation, and not to get like, oh, men don't have to worry about this, but it is something you just said that I'm up for promotion. Is it time to have another baby? These are all things that women deal with in their career and trying to further their career, that it's something that men don't even, it's not even on their radar. Yeah, if my wife has another baby, that's fine. But like, not that it doesn't affect them, but it doesn't affect them in the same way. And hopefully one day something will change with that outlook. But I don't think, I think so
Oh,
many
dude,
women struggle,
100%. Like
you
I
know?
make dinner every night. I'm the
Yeah.
grocery shopper. I have to clean the house. Well, in between the house cleaner. But yeah, no, I think he just works. Like that's it. And like you may see the kids on like playtime. He plays like Roblox or something with Liam a lot. Or if it's warm in Michigan, he's out playing football. But I'm pretty sure that it's like sports or work. And then I'm here
Yeah,
in the background, just
scrubbing
Tasmanian
everything.
devil trying to make it happen.
That was one thing before my husband and I moved in, because we both grew up with moms who were stay-at-home moms, and so our moms did everything, anything and
Oh,
everything, and very much to the extreme. And I said, like, I can't do that. I don't know. I will be working, and I'm always like on the move too. Like I was coaching so much, and I said, if you like, you have to really pull your weight too. So I think he does a really good job, thankfully, with that. And I don't know if it has anything to do with that conversation from the beginning, but I know so many people struggle with it, and they're like, wait, why does your husband do like this and that? And I'm like, I don't know. I had the conversation before we moved in, because I was like, I can't live a life like that, or I will
wow.
crumble. So I'm very lucky in that sense.
Yeah, you are lucky because I'm like, wait a minute. We've had the conversation many, many times over 21 years, and it's the same conversation, and it's still the same.
Yeah.
Oh, good for you. Yeah, your husband currently. I like it.
He does. I think that's that's something very good about him.
Mhm.
So thing with the running wine mom, I always like to start off with some fitness. So what's your favorite way to stay active?
Orange Theory. Do you guys, I
Yeah.
don't know if you have one out in Philly. Yeah, I've
Yeah.
been a member for 4.5 years. I'm one of those crazy people who get there early for the tread card.
Yeah.
But fitness for me is like mental. Yes,
Hmm.
there's the physical part that follows, which is awesome. I'm 48. Well, I'm 48 on Saturday. But I'm just
Oh,
gonna
happy
get
early
used to
birthday.
saying. But I'm telling you, I'm in better shape than I ever have been. So, Orange Theory is the best. But yeah, mentally, if I don't work out or if I'm not working out, I'm really cranky.
I feel you on that. I'm the same exact way with it. And people, I feel like they're like, well, I don't want to go work out. I want to sleep in the extra hour. And I just feel like the the mental positivity that your body feels after your
Mhm.
workout so outweighs that sleeping in for 20 minutes. And I'm like, I wish people could just like understand that.
Oh, it's huge. I would not be as productive.
Yeah.
I would not. But I think a lot of people, I had a hard time with this early on in my career, like taking that time for myself.
Hmm.
I always have been a workout fanatic because it always kept me grounded, helped me get through those tough times. But yeah, definitely in my younger career, I literally felt guilty for working out. Now, I mean, it's a requirement. My family would be like, if I didn't work out, they'll be like, please go work out because
Please go run. Please go
I'll be too
run.
irritable. It's either that or give me some wine.
Yeah, we are like kindred souls, I swear. This is exactly how I
Well,
am.
okay, if I ever had a podcast, I would literally name it the same as yours. I'm a huge runner too. Like I'm training for a 6-minute mile right now.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. I'm more of a long distance runner. I love
Mhm.
to, I have never in my entire life been fast, and that was in my younger years really held me back. But then just because I was scared, because I'm like, oh, I don't have a 7-minute mile. I don't even have an 8-minute mile. But my mom is a big runner, and Philly has a big run, the Broad Street Run. It's 10 miles.
Oh,
And
wow.
her and I, right after I graduated college, I was like, should we try it? And we did. And we've done it many years. And marathons have come from that for me. So
Wow.
I'll never be a 6-minute mile. I am very
Yeah,
proud
I'm
of
the
you for that.
opposite. Like I don't like going over 3 miles.
Yeah. So, and then even with my kids, I push them in the jogger now. And again, we're very slow, but we do
Mhm.
it.
No, that's great. That's great. It seems like people are one way or the other. I'm more of
Yeah.
that fast bust, and that's probably due to lack of time when I was younger. Just bust it out and go.
So besides your mental mindset, is there any other thing that keeps you motivated to keep your fitness routine?
So as I age, aging's hard. You hit like 40, as I said, 48, and I'm like, okay, that is 2 years from 50. So,
Yeah. You're
I'm like, oh my goodness. So I will say that I feel a lot younger. The fact that I'm working out all the time, you
yeah.
know,
Uh,
um,
and
and
for the longevity of 10, 15, 20 years from now, that's another thing I think people really lack. And my parents are in their 60s, and they are very much movers. They move, they're
Mhm.
hikers and runners, and they're seeing a lot of their friends. They're senior citizens now. They're like, we're all senior
Yes.
citizens, but like there's like not an opportunity to move backwards once you get there. And they're very thankful that in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, they stayed active because if not, they would be in the same boat, I guess. So,
Oh, dude, 100%. I see some chicks at the gym at Orange Theory. You kind of become a community and
mhm.
like, friends. And they're a little bit older. But usually when they're telling me their age, and they've always worked out too, by the way, but they'll say their age, and I'm always like floored. I'm like,
Yeah,
stop it.
that's
So yeah,
awesome.
I think it's definitely almost like an anti-aging thing that kind of nobody talks about.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about parenthood. Tell us about your family.
So I've been married for 21 years to my husband, James, and we have 3 kids. The 2 older daughters, Abigail's 19, Eliana is 15, and then I got my son Liam,
Oh,
who's 9. And as I explained, it's a little wild in the house. But then we have 2 dogs, a bunny, and a fish. I never mentioned the fish, but the thing won't die. It's like this blue beta, and its water's always cloudy. We barely feed it. We've had other beta fish that have died, and this thing, I mean, we took it to Florida. We took the
Oh
fish
my
to
gosh.
Florida. Yeah, I'm like, it's like part of the family. I'm like, this is so weird. Taking the fish to Florida over Christmas because we drove
Yeah.
2 dogs, a bunny, and a fish.
Oh my gosh.
But yeah, no, you know what? We definitely like to have fun. So here in Michigan, we're on a lake, so our summers are kind of fun
That's
with
awesome.
boating and hanging out and stuff. So
We we were going to actually this summer do a cross country trip with the kids. Things unfortunately had to change, but one of our stops was going to be Michigan, and we looked up a bunch of the lakes because we're close to the shores. So we go to the beach all summer, but we were looking up the lake towns in Michigan and we're like, "Oh my gosh, this is probably the same thing, that we're experiencing, but just on a lake instead of
yeah,
the shore." I also read that you guys hosted a foreign exchange student at some point.
we did.
How
Yeah,
was that?
Angie. Random things seem to happen to us. So my daughter was 15 at the time, Abby, who's
Mhm.
now 19. Uh, and basically, she was at school and found that there was a foreign exchange. They had just started school. It was September.
Okay.
A foreign exchange student was not getting along with their host family and needed
Oh,
another host family, or they were going to send her back to Thailand. So I'll never forget it. It was a beautiful day. It was end of summer, fall's going to start. It was just one of those like
mhm.
happy days, seasons changing. She walks up the driveway and she's like, "Hey mom, there's this foreign exchange student. Can she come live with us?" And I'm like, "Sure." And I'm like, "Why don't you go ask your dad?" And
Yeah.
we'll see. We'll put it in, his court, ball in his court. And I'll never forget this because he was in the outside. We have a separate building, and she walks in and she's like, "Hey, Dad, there's a foreign exchange student named Angie, and they're going to send her back to Thailand. If she doesn't find a host family, can she come live with us?" And my husband's like, "Sure, go talk to your mom." It was literally that simple. Now, hold on, it got a little complex because right after that, my phone's going crazy. There's people, I get like this federal investigator. They had to do a whole big federal background check.
Mhm.
They're sending the people over to search my house.
Oh my
I'm
gosh.
like, and of course it's me, right? So I have full wine bottles is like my decoration on the wall. I'm like, shit, do I take the wine down? Like, what do I didn't know what to do. I'm like, are they going to find me unfit? Because I decorate my house with wine. We have a full bar downstairs, and ever. I'm like, we don't even have time. So then it's kind of like, what did we just do?
Yeah.
Like the next day. And listen, we were completely sober. We weren't even on wine yet. This is a sober decision, whatever.
Oh my gosh.
I'm like, is the FBI or the federal people, are they going to pull like a hair strand and like check my
Yeah.
hair? I didn't know what was going to happen. But you know what? Everything passed, everything went through. And Angie ended up being just an absolute blessing to our family that year. Yeah, she was one of my daughters. This past summer, she actually came back
Oh,
to Michigan for a couple of weeks, so that was very special. And then right before she left, we went. She had gotten a job at Busch Gardens in Virginia, so
okay.
we
Yeah.
headed over to Busch Gardens kind of for our
Oh,
last hurrah, and it was amazing. So it was
that's
it was a very cool experience, and my kids know all about Thailand now.
I love that. What a great random, thing to pop into your life. That's really cool. So, along with that, my next question was going to be, what do you think your parenting style is?
So I used to be pretty hardcore. I was so if you have good cop, bad cop, I was the bad cop, and my husband was the good cop because that's how I grew up. Very
Right.
strict, I'm a very direct person, and whatnot. But then, as the girls have gotten older in teenage years and whatnot, I got sick of being the bad cop. So I definitely chilled out a lot. Me trying to make my husband the bad cop, he's still not the bad cop. Um, yeah, he's like he can be a little bit more so now than me. But I think now I would definitely say parenting style is just more chill, more laid back. But the oldest is 19, 15. He knows
Yeah.
he's almost done. Liam is also like we've talked about, he floats on water, he floats, walks on water. So he's a really good kid, so there's no reason to freak out. And then with the teenagers, we're just like,
Yeah, it's a lot for sure.
whatever. But
Do what you
good
want.
luck.
Yeah.
Good luck,
Good.
guys.
Yeah. Learn on your own, I guess.
Good luck. I have guided you this far, so.
Yes, exactly. You gotta just hope you did the right thing, and that's all you can do when they're
Mhm.
teenagers, I feel like.
Yep.
What do you think you were least prepared for in parenthood?
Oh, by far the teenagers. I mean,
Yeah.
they when they go, it's like 11 years old. I mean, and they both, you know what? I feel
Hmm.
bad for Abby, the oldest, because she went through it first, and I did not understand that this is actually semi-normal.
Yeah.
Uh, and then Ellie, literally same thing, 11 years old, and then by 13, complete disaster. Just everything's changing, hormones. They cry all the time.
Hmm.
They're always yelling something. They're constantly upset. Like I was like, oh, and at first we're like, I'm like, stop it. You're ruining tonight. You're ruining the house. The energy in the house is going
Yeah.
down. Stop it. And then we've learned now to kind of like how we deal with them. So if they're freaking out or whatever over a boy or something at school or whatever, we're just like, okay, like no, but
Right.
we're
Right.
something, teenager,
Yeah.
teenager issue. So, but yeah, I was not ready.
That's
And people
hard.
would warn me because, I always had them in cute dresses and I was so proud. And they're like, you just wait, Gina. And I'm like, what? Why do they
Yeah.
keep saying that? Oh, yeah. Good
We
luck.
already, my husband and I, my daughter will do something so cute, and then my husband will just exhale and he's like, one day she's gonna hate me. And I don't want it to happen. Like,
Hmm.
it'll be for like 4 or 5 years, maybe six, and then it'll be fine, hopefully.
Yeah. Abby's 19. She's just getting out of it.
Yeah, that's what my dad still talks about us in our teenage. I hope that being a high school teacher, that I at least can be a little bit more mentally strong for the meanness that the girls can kind
Mhm.
of have towards you. I'm used
Yes.
to all these girls, I teach like 350 girls basically through the day, and at least a few are mean every day. So I'm just getting resilient till till Willow is
Yeah.
in her teens, I guess.
I think you're going
Um,
to be a lot better prepared than me.
gosh, I don't know. I think when it's your own child, it's just like so different than you
Hmm.
can't send them back to their parents or like, any of that. You
Good
are the
point.
parents.
Yeah.
Um, and what's one piece of advice that you would give other parents?
Oh, don't yell. You know what? I was a yeller in my earlier years and it doesn't get them anywhere. I'm pretty
Hmm.
sure it psychologically screws the kids up. So I would not yell. I'm definitely kind of like we said earlier with the chant, like I'm definitely more chill.
Yeah.
Um, it's just not worth it but they would get emotionally whatever sideways. And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
And they're putting me emotionally sideways. And then I figured out that that's probably the worst response.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would just I and then just I don't know, just not yelling. I don't know. That seemed to be definitely if I yelled, then everything in the house went wrong.
Just
And if
like
I
falls.
don't yell, I'm just more chill, stay calm, everything operates a lot better.
Yeah. I think that's great advice because I think a lot of people, I think, well, now for me, like as with my toddlers, everything's about like gentle parenting, and
Mhm.
I don't know that I necessarily like fall into that at all because we're pretty strict even though our kids are so little. But the yelling thing I think is something that is huge because if you can just remain calm,
Mhm.
then their energy like feeds off of yours, which I think is really important. Even if you are like saying like you can't do that, just saying it in like a stricter tone and being consistent with it is super important, but you can be strict and
Yes.
not yell, which is something that I don't think a lot of people really get. I don't know.
No, 100%. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So, no, that's a good point.
So let's move on to maybe a little bit about you. So your journey involves transitioning from an attorney to a best-selling author. Can you share the driving force behind the shift and what kept you going through any of the challenges that you worked through?
Right. So, as I talked about earlier, I'm a childbirth attorney. So, those are the cases that when I say baby's not born healthy, just so your audience understands, I mean, they're permanently not healthy. They typically have like a injury to their brain from lack of oxygen. They may have a brachial plexus injury, so their arm will hang on like this bent position and, never really grow right. These are serious cases. But uh, the big turning point was my niece got pregnant with the first baby of our next generation. So Sam is almost like a daughter to me. And so, that was very, very important. So her childbirth, it's actually the introduction to the book, ended up being very scary. And, you have to read the introduction. It's actually on my website at
Hmm.
ginamundy.com. I have it up there because I think when people read that story, there's lessons in that story that people can learn from, but it definitely lays out why I wrote the book. And so I basically got a phone call from my sister, and we were expecting to hear the good news that Sam had her baby. And instead, it was one of those moments you will never forget where you were. I was in my
Hmm.
kitchen, surrounded by my kids, and I answered the phone, in my typical long, drawn out, hey. And all I hear is my sister screaming, the
Mm.
baby crashed, the baby crashed. And I ran out of the house because my kids could you could hear their Aunt Kelly, which is my sister. And I sat outside on the porch and she's just bawling. We were 1,100 miles away from Sam.
Uh,
We were actually in Florida. So, there was nothing, I couldn't get to her. She had actually gone into, you'll see in the story, she'd gone to labor the day before. There's a lot of other things that kind of led up to this point. But me being so far away, it was just really hard. But anyway, I sat on the porch just listening to my sister cry. And I'm going through her, what had happened during labor, kind of like, my legal analysis on what I do
hmm.
with a childbirth case. But then as I listened to my sister cry, I went from legal analysis to human analysis, and
Hmm.
I'm like, this is how the families feel. This is like the moment they
Yeah.
find out that their baby's not
That
going to
you're
be healthy. And let
right.
me tell you, it was the worst feeling ever because there is nothing you can do at that point. All
Hmm.
you can do is hope and pray because no decision now is going to change the past. So we got news eventually after about 20 minutes that actually the baby was going to be okay. So
Good.
that was good. And well, whatever. So baby was going to be okay, basically. We'll just leave it at that. And I just remember that night, I had to pour a glass of wine after that, obviously. And
Hmm.
I just remember sitting there just like, wow, that was changing. That's something that stops you, in your tracks, I'm used to being in the grind all day.
Hmm.
And something like that was like, it was a Friday night, took me out of the grind. And I was just like, wow. So, and then I popped to my head, I may not be around for the birth of my grandkids. I have three
Right.
kids. And listen, how my kids will be prepared for childbirth is much different than how a family would traditionally prepare because of what I've seen and what I
Right.
know. So that's kind of what happened is like all of a sudden it was that line of thinking that went like, wait a minute, maybe I should be writing this down, because what if I'm 1,100 miles away from, my kids if they go
Mhm.
into labor? So I started writing it down, and let me tell you, when I went from attorney to author, I mean, the information that came out of my brain, I'm like, thank goodness I'm writing this down, just so, because I know it'll help other families have a healthy
Mhm.
baby. Because I'll tell you, the hardest part of my job is the day that I have to sit down with these families and go over the day that their baby was born, the day they
Yeah.
lost their baby, or the day they lost their mom or their wife. I mean, that's it. It's
Yeah.
after those talks, there's no more working for me.
Right.
I have to go. It's just too hard. So, I just knew I had to get this down for, it's initially my kids, but then I'm like, wait a minute, this is something that could help families all over the world. And it
Right.
has. My book sells all over the world. Right now, for some reason, it's huge in Japan. But I've had Australia, United Kingdom, Canada, you know, popping up just pew, pew. So, it's information that I think definitely families are, liking. Because I'll tell you, in the cases, these families are literally one decision or minutes from a healthy baby. So
Oh,
having a book
yeah.
like mine where it can help you make those good decisions, so you can have the healthy baby, I think is just huge. So that was my driving force. It was like that personal experience. And then the book took 14 months to write and thousands of hours. So I have to get up every day at 3 a.m. I go to bed
Wow.
between 7 and 8. I typically have to take a 40-minute nap at some point in the afternoon. But when I started writing the book, um, oh, this part's always hard. So I actually cried for the first 3 months of writing the book because, dealing with these, not these cases and talking with these families, I would basically emotionally like suppress it. I
Mhm.
probably should have done counseling throughout my professional career and I didn't. But that's okay because the book was really like this therapeutic, get
Yeah.
everything out because you have to go back to the cases. Okay, what can we learn from them? And of course, as a mom and a human, I'm like, okay, I've been doing this for my first case is February 2003.
Wow.
So,
Okay.
and the families, I'm like, what are they doing 20 years later? How are they? Are they okay? Uh, so basically, after 3 months of crying, I had this clarity that I knew I could make a difference, a big difference. And I used that as like my catalyst to, keep me going when I had brain fog or when I was tired. I'm still a partner in a law firm. So, if there's, a big case, it's litigation. Litigation is up and down. You're really busy and then you're not. So,
Mhm.
it was just trying to stay focused because ultimately, I never want another family to have to go through what the families that I have met have been through,
Right.
during childbirth.
Yeah, and there's so much to kind of take away from that. And one thing, about you being emotionally attached from your cases is probably something that you obviously didn't think about maybe when you were writing the book. But the other thing that I was thinking is before you wrote the book, did you think that there was going to be a pattern maybe of like doing these specific things will lead to a healthier birth experience? Or do you think that it was more just like every case you like, did you see the connections before you wrote the book?
Right. Yeah, I know exactly. Yes. So I already knew that there were reoccurring issues and facts. So for instance, this has happened many, many times in my career. We have to retain expert witnesses to look at a case, to look at the care mom received, and to tell us whether they think it was good care or bad care. But you build relationships with these experts or whatnot. So the expert would call, and they would just start talking about a case without telling me the name, and I would be like, "Okay, you have to stop. I don't know what case you're talking about." And they'd be like, "What? How could you not know?" And I'm like, "Because they're like the same issues in the cases, so I don't know which one you're talking about." They'd have to tell me which one they're talking about, and then we'd proceed. But yes, there's common issues, reoccurring mistakes in these cases that people that I know as a
Right.
childbirth attorney, but there's not that many of us. I mean, most people do not know that my profession exists.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but I've obviously, I've seen those patterns and whatnot, and it's in my book, chapter 11.
And again, it's interesting that you say most people don't know that, like, it makes sense that your line of work would exist, but I don't think a lot of, like, before I had my kids, I never even thought, hey, maybe I should look to see what an attorney in your area would say for what are
Mhm.
the best things. And I think writing a book is really just such a wonderful piece of knowledge that like you said, anybody can read and prepare for. I wish that I had read it before, even though thankfully both of my births were very healthy, but I'm very like data driven, and that is the way, like the facts of stuff, not just like, oh, do this and maybe this will happen. I want to know the best way to prepare. And I think that's what a lot of moms feel before they have babies, and this will be a great resource for them.
Thank you.
Could you highlight maybe one key lesson from childbirth cases that maybe you think is either the most um, prevalent, or something that you think that you can share with the audience, of maybe one that you think is most important for them to kind of prepare for?
So the number one fact and reoccurring issue in a baby case is Pitocin.
Okay.
Pitocin is a drug that is used to induce mom's labor. So Pitocin basically makes the uterus contract and the body follows, and then mom will head into labor. But that's, it's a synthetic drug. Your body naturally produces oxytocin. Um, so that drug is supposed to kind of mimic what oxytocin would do. Oxytocin is, responsible for really jump starting your labor naturally. So I've seen the Pitocin inductions gone wrong for we're almost at 21 years now as of this podcast. And then the amount of research I've done on the drug, just talking to experts, talking to, delivery teams across the United States. As part of my job, I've been in probably almost every single health system, meeting with delivery teams, hashing out labor and delivery, talking about Pitocin. So, and then I've looked at, all the Pitocin protocols and whatnot. So basically, yes, I'm like, hi, Pitocin is the number one most common fact in a baby case. But here's chapter 14 on how you can have a safe Pitocin induction.
Okay.
So, while I may identify a problem, I definitely solve it and tell you how to have that safe childbirth. Because it's not so much, what's going to go wrong, it's how to make sure everything goes right.
That's a great perspective too. And I love that you do the both, because there might be so many people, listening and thinking, oh my gosh, the Pitocin, I can't have it. But to have the safer option if you have to have it, or you choose to have it, is really important for any woman to be able to have that if they're going in.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, so like in my niece's story, Sam, she went into the hospital and there had been concerns about the baby once she arrived. And she was actually only 38 weeks, but they were like, listen, you're not going home. You can either have a Pitocin induction or a C-section, but we got to get the baby out. So no matter what, you should prepare for a safe Pitocin induction, because Sam did not want anything to do with a Pitocin induction or a C-section.
Yeah.
But that day, in those minutes, it was like,
Which
no.
do I choose? Yeah.
Right. And obviously they had been contacting me, and and I'm like, no,
Yeah.
we're delivering the baby. You sound like you have a great delivery team. Let's do this. But so you do want to be ready, even if you're not planning on it, because that is definitely an option that doctors like. I mean, I sit down with these delivery teams and I'm like, I don't like Pitocin. And they're like, Gina, Pitocin's fine. They are all on board with Pitocin, but how Pitocin is administered is different in the hospitals, different hospital systems, different nurses, different doctors. They all administer it differently. So it's very, very, very important that you have a good idea on how, at least I think it should be administered, um, or whatnot, to make sure you can have that healthy baby. And here's the deal: your doctor may be like, and nurse may be like, this is what I would do anyway. Perfect. So you
Right.
had a good doctor and nurse. That's great. Now everybody practiced like that. I wouldn't have baby cases and I wouldn't have had to write chapter 14. But that's, unfortunately there are different doctors, different ways to administer Pitocin.
And so you do talk about the importance of a great delivery team. Can you share any insights on how parents can pick the right doctor and hospital for maybe a less stressful delivery?
Sure. So I'll start. The doctor is like captain of your delivery team. They head your delivery team. They are ultimately, responsible for, making sure your baby comes into this world healthy. So picking the good doctor is so important. So basically, I have been analyzing OBGYNs now for a long time, obviously. Let's see, again, 21 years. So I wrote a whole chapter basically on how to pick. I think the chapter is called The Good Doctor, chapter 4, The Good Doctor, how to pick the good doctor. And I go over, what I've learned from analyzing OBGYNs. Because ultimately, these are cases that, end up sometimes in front of a jury. And listen, you can't stick a bad doctor in front of a jury. So I had
Right.
to literally master this good doc. What question should you ask? When I meet a doctor or we're doing a deposition, there's 20 questions that I'm like, boom, boom, boom. I need to know this. And we use those questions then to either give credibility to a doctor in front of a jury, or sometimes we use that information to discredit a doctor in front of a jury.
Mm,
These are like, I'm like, why patients should ask these questions. I ask them my OB, but it's me, right? Again, and
right.
will my kids ask these questions? Yes. And they're not off the wall questions. These are literally questions every single, patient really should know and understand. So, there's stuff like that in there. There's something in there called the Yoda imposter. There's a little section on that. And basically I was meeting with a fact witness on a case. She was a nurse. She had left the hospital system right after the delivery at issue. I had
Mm,
mentioned a doctor's name, and she referred to that doctor. She goes, "Oh, that doctor. Oh, we call him Yoda." And I looked at her, and I'm like, "Hmm? Did you call him Yoda
yeah.
because he looks like Yoda?" Yeah, mind you, not. I did not think the doctor looked like Yoda. But I'm like, there's no way we're talking about the same doctor. And we were. But she had left the hospital system, so she had no idea that the doctor she called Yoda had done some pretty bad things to his
Mm,
patients. So I told her to Google the doctor, and she did it sometime after the meeting. I'm sure she was just completely appalled, when she saw the news stories and the allegations, against him. So it's important to understand that a good reputation does not, equate to good care. So
yeah.
there's just so many different aspects to picking a good doctor. So chapter 4, I'll leave it at that. I have a doctor that I was in trial with. We got some of that stuff. It's an interesting
Yeah.
chapter. But then you get to the delivery team. So the delivery team works together and their job is to bring your baby safely into this world.
Hmm.
When we have a case, a childbirth case, it is the delivery team's care that is at issue and analyzed more than any other aspect of the case. So picking the right delivery team or having the right delivery team is important. However, delivery team, besides your doctor, you're basically getting the people who are scheduled to work that day.
Right. That was going to be my next question. Like, what do
Yep.
you
Oh,
do?
yeah. So listen, you know what? I go through it in the cases because same thing. I have to stick my delivery team in front of a jury. I need the dream team delivery team, if I'm going to put them in front of a jury. I can't have a delivery team with a bad apple going in front of a jury. So I say, you want the dream team. You want, and then I'm like, second, delivery team with a bad apple. But in a case, I can't get rid of my bad apple. My bad apple is in the case. However, I show, the parents, I'm like, this is what you have to do to get rid of your bad apple, that's on your team. And I go, basically through the steps. And then the last delivery team name I called Bush League. I know, right? I just couldn't, my husband and I were like, what do you call? You got more than two on the delivery team that you don't like. So here's the deal. Bush League was kind of earlier in my career. I don't really see Bush League anymore, where there's, basically I have a delivery team with two people, two witnesses that I'm like, oh, great. So I don't really have those anymore, but in the event that your team is Bush League, I definitely tell you exactly how to handle it.
Right.
And the chapter 3 is just dedicated to the delivery team. And then just what's important about them, the different players on your team, you should know what they do. You should understand that your doctor is not at the hospital bedside. A lot of people are like, where's my doctor? And I'm like, no,
Yeah.
your bedside person is the nurse, the resident, a midwife, whoever you have, and they communicate with your doctor. So,
Yeah.
and your doctor then makes the recommendations and he's not even there, unless obviously there's certain circumstances where maybe a doctor's working a 12-hour shift or something, but
Right.
usually no, they don't just hang out with you while you're in labor.
Which
So,
is kind of what everybody I feel like thinks before you get pregnant, and then you're like, wait, this isn't how it works. It's just like kind of the luck of the draw.
yeah. Yeah. So it's those two chapters are probably my favorite chapters because they're definitely not what you're going to find in an ordinary pregnancy book.
Yeah. Another thing that you talk about is a birth plan. So again, when I was pregnant and with both kids, all these like, mommy Facebook groups are like, oh, this is my birth plan. I want this music playing and I want this and and it's like all of these kind of like not to be like superficial things, but things that I'm like, this doesn't have anything to do with like actually having the baby. But what advice do you have for parents in like in crafting a plan that ensures both their safety and their babies?
Oh yeah. So my been on a delivery, or I call it a labor and delivery plan,
Hmm.
LAD plan. Same thing as a birth plan. A little bit different. It's not so much the plan itself,
Hmm.
it's the act of preparing the plan
Right.
that's going to get you ready for childbirth. So, taking the time to prepare a good plan, researching childbirth, reading things like my book, read other books, and then kind of think, okay, what if I'm in this position? What am I going to do? Because, when you're in labor, you enter like a different state of mind. Being in
Hmm.
labor is about the only time where being in pain is completely acceptable.
Right.
So, and if you can't deal with the pain, which most women get epidurals, then, you're medicated or you're just in a bunch of pain. And not only that, you have to physically and mentally focus on delivering the baby that's in your belly.
Hmm.
So it's important to get ready. I mean, it's definitely one of the biggest lessons from the childbirth cases is getting ready for, the birth of your baby.
Yeah.
I give the analogy in the book where, I have to do these intense cross examinations of OBGYN doctors, the doctors that deliver babies. And I mean, they'll be hours and hours long. So I get ready, I get my plan. Right before I start the cross examination, I look at my plan, my questions, my
Right.
strategy. I look at it 3 times, I put it down, and it's go time. I don't have time to stare at my plan, but I'm ready. So if my doctor throws something at me, I can pivot if I have to, because those are intense. I mean, I'm definitely in a different state of mind when I'm doing a, major cross exam. So it allows me though to pivot, stay focused and whatnot. In that chapter, chapter 6, have a plan. I talk about, I have people that text me or call me from labor and delivery. This mom, I don't even know who she was. She had been referred to me, like, call the childbirth attorney, but her doctor had told her things that really she wasn't ready to hear. And
Hmm.
that element of surprise, I mean, she was like a deer in the headlights.
Yeah.
And because of that, she had a really hard time focusing on what the doctor was saying and making a decision. She just starts calling people. And for some odd reason, someone refers her to me to make, help her. And we did talk through everything. And after that, she was able to make decisions. Um, but she had a plan and she was ready, I think that element of surprise wouldn't
Hmm.
have caught her off guard, and she
Right.
wouldn't have been trying to find a baby lawyer to talk to.
Yeah, and I mean that's the last thing that you want to do in your birthing experience is looking a baby lawyer. Like that's not I don't think
Nothing
that's
had gone wrong either way. Nothing, the baby was still,
yeah,
everybody was still fine.
right. It's
So
just like yeah. Note on if ever having more children, write baby lawyer's phone number on bottom of birth plan. So in this book, before, especially first time parents not really knowing what they're getting into and having so many fears, how do you think that you ensured that this book doesn't scare parents or mothers from before birth, and it gives them an empowerment to have the knowledge?
Oh, that is, I love that question because I do think there is an element of people being moms being nervous. So obviously I've had three babies. Since I started in this field, I mean, I say words that I probably shouldn't be able to say, probably going back to that emotional suppression stuff. But I learned early on talking to pregnant moms that I cannot talk like I would probably somebody like you if you weren't pregnant.
Hmm.
So I already learned that early on that I definitely, because they shut right down.
Right.
I start talking and then they're like, boom. So I learned early on that there's definitely a way to talk to them because, as I said, I do get the phone calls and whatnot during pregnancy and childbirth. But then just to make sure, so I spent a lot of time figuring out how I could write the book where it wasn't
Hmm.
scary. So again, that's where it comes into play. It's not about what can go wrong, but making sure you do what you need to do to make sure it goes right.
Okay.
So I had six. So right before it was published, so it was final form. I had six pregnant beta readers go through my book. And my number one question is, does this scare you at all? Is this helpful? What do you think? And all six of them are like, no, Gina, this is completely fine. This is not scary at all. So I
That,
really focused on too, if I said an issue, like Pitocin's the number one
mhm.
factor in a leading baby case. Oh no,
Yeah.
I'm
Oh my
on
gosh, can't
Pitocin.
have
No,
it.
yeah, and I did this too because this book also was written for my kids. That's where the time spent, the thousands of hours was solving the problem. This is how you make sure it doesn't happen during, the birth of your baby. So
Right.
no, I was very, very, very cautious, careful, had the beta readers confirm that it's not scary. And then the reviews on Amazon have just been amazing. It's like I'm at 300 and something.
Wow.
The book was just published 6 months ago, but just the family is just being so grateful that they have this information and thanking me, and the outreach from other people also confirm, they're just so appreciative of the information and that,
Yeah.
it's not scary. Plus, I will say all my beta readers now have had their baby, and
Oh,
everybody did good. So
there you go. That's
yeah.
that's even better.
I know.
That's
I know.
amazing.
After we got the last beta reader had her baby, I started adding that in. I'm like, just so you know, they're all healthy
They
babies.
all listened and they all had healthy babies, which is great.
Yeah.
Is there any other questions about the book specifically that I maybe didn't ask? Um,
There's one.
yeah.
So this is how the book is kind of structured. Chapter 1 are the lessons from the baby cases.
Okay.
So whether it's the family, it's the delivery team, the medical experts, these are what you can learn. And as these are lessons. And as a lesson, you're trying then to, learn from it so you can prevent it from happening in the future. So that chapter is so important that I actually have it on my website for free. So you
Okay.
can look at it, you can download it, because I know that if families at least know this stuff, you're going to be just so much better off. It's going
Hmm.
to guide you, on what you need to know and learn from these cases. So that chapter again for free at ginamundy.com, GINAMUNDY
And I'll link all
.com.
that.
I'm sure it'll be, yeah, in the show
Show
notes.
notes. Yep.
But then what I did, so if a family wants to go deeper into then my thoughts or how I, other um, information about that lesson, is that then each subsequent chapter is a lesson.
Hmm. Okay.
So chapter 1, families need to prepare for childbirth. Because I can tell you the families in the cases, they are not ready for childbirth. They learn so much more in the aftermath of something going wrong. So, I go through that. So then chapter 2 is kind of the foundation, your labor and delivery basics. This is what I find important about childbirth. So these are not things you're going to learn in a normal pregnancy book.
Hmm.
These are the things that when I'm evaluating a case or I'm doing a case analysis, if I'm cross-examining an OBGYN, these are the things I know. So, it's important. And then just going down the list.
Hmm.
No matter what, lesson one is, or chapter one is absolutely important. And then, anybody who wants to take it a step further, to go through the chapters and learn more, you go to
Yeah.
Amazon.
Yeah.
And the
No.
website will take you to Amazon.
So in addition to your book on your website, you do have some blog topics, and they have a variety of different things that people can also gain great insight from. Is there any particular blog post that you really feel is important and impactful?
When you're trying to make a good decision, and this is probably more pregnancy because this is where you're hashing stuff out with your doctor, it is so important to understand that different doctors have different opinions and different management styles. I literally will send a case to two experts, two OBGYN experts. Again, they're responsible for looking at the care. Was this good care? Was it bad care? And then I will talk to each expert, and one expert will tell me everything was done right, and another one will tell me everything was done wrong. So
Interesting.
in this field of, childbirth, there are so many in pregnancy, there are so many different schools of thought. So you'll have two schools of thought on one issue.
Hmm.
Even, we'll just do VBAC. Some doctors like
Yeah.
VBAC, some don't. So, if that, when I say VBAC, I'm talking about a vaginal birth after C-section. So first baby C-section, do you have another C-section or do you have a vaginal birth? Maybe something like that. So there's different doctors, different opinions. They're going to tell you different things. So it's important if you're talking to a doctor and you're trying to make a decision, don't just get their opinion.
Hmm.
Ask them, are there two schools of thought? Are there other people in the medical community that would have a different opinion? If so, what are they? So a really good doctor is going to say, okay, some people believe this, some people believe this. Based upon my experience with my patients and the way I practice and my education, this is what I think.
Hmm.
But you should be given, if there's more than one option, they should tell you both. And also keeping in mind that doctors disagree all the time.
Hmm.
They disagree on everything. So trust, this is what I do, because
Yeah.
we try to, when you're going to get ready for trial, you're like, okay, how did all the doctors disagree with each other? And then
Right.
it helps discredit them, in front of a jury. So
Yeah.
that's a huge part of my job is nitpicking their different opinions. But that leads me to my last point, and that is if your doctor has an opinion about something, but you believe something else, whether you've read it, that's how you think, your doctor does not speak gospel. So
Hmm.
you could be completely right. And the way you think or your opinion could easily align with another doctor. So
Right.
don't let the doctor just shoot you down and be like, no, no,
Yeah.
no, no. Actually, last point, I'll be in a deposition with a doctor. And I don't do this anymore, but I was so confused when I started in this field because all the doctors had different opinions that during depositions, I would say to the doctor, why do you have this opinion, but this doctor has the complete opposite opinion?
Right.
And the only response I ever could get was the other doctor was crazy. It's not like they're
Mm.
like, okay, there's two schools of thought and this and
Right.
that. No, I'm right, they're wrong. So just keep that in mind when you're talking to a doctor. I think a doctor that gives you, the two schools of thought, then their opinion is definitely the one that's going to help you make those, good decisions.
Yeah, and I had selfishly wanted to ask you about VBACs and maybe just talk about it for a minute. So to go back to even my birth, I was a C-section breech baby. Then my mom in, the 80s switched doctors to get a VBAC because her doctor wouldn't
Oh,
do a VBAC with my sister. And so she was able to have a VBAC with my sister and my brother. So fast forward to then me, um, my daughter was breech. So they had talked to me about doing the flipping of the baby, and my
mhm.
doctor was very much about that. And my husband and I kind of talked about it, and I said, listen, like, I'll just do the C-section because I didn't want to try to flip the baby. And thankfully I didn't, because I had a marginally inserted cord. And if I could
Oh,
have flipped it, and this is something
oh,
my doctors actually didn't tell me until after I had the baby. My one doctor was like, "Oh, nobody told you had a marginal insert into the placenta," which anyone who doesn't know, that is literally like on the side. And if the baby did flip, it could have ruptured, and the placenta, it could have been a big issue. So thankfully we kind of went with it. But then once I had my second, it was such a debate if I should have a VBAC or go
mm,
back in for a C-section, especially since they were 18 months apart. And I did choose a C-section just because I was scared, I guess, with any information of like all the negatives around having a VBAC or what could happen if they're so close together. And I guess I'd just like to hear your opinion on it.
so here's the deal. Your uterus is inside you. And just to back up a little bit, when you're having that C-section, your baby's inside your uterus. So to get the baby out of the uterus, they do the C-section, they open the uterus up, and then they pull the baby up, and then they suture the uterus.
Hmm.
Okay, the scare with the VBAC is that in the second baby, and I'm sure you know this, but for your
Hmm.
audience, um, is that during childbirth, that incision from the prior C-section will tear open. If that happens, it's very, very bad for mom and baby, like life-changing
Right.
bad. Like what I see in my case is bad. Okay, so that's the risk.
Yeah.
Here's the deal. Your uterus is inside you, and nobody can see how that uterine or C-section incision healed.
Right.
So, and it also takes time to heal. So that's why, so 18 months, yes,
Yeah.
I would be on the side of a C-section, because you do want that time for that C-section incision to heal. But then I do there's a whole story in my book. It's the baby advocate chapter.
Hmm.
And it starts with a very powerful story of a VBAC.
Yeah.
But bottom line, um, no one knows how it healed.
Yeah. And
So
that's what that,
really don't let your doctors tell you this
yeah.
is a great option because it's low risk, because for you it might not be. Um, but how old are you too? As we
Right.
age, we're not going to,
Yeah, I was a
feel as well.
geriatric pregnancy for I think I was just 35, so I was technically geriatric in my pregnancy with my son. So it's like,
Oh, okay, so you were old. Yeah, so
yeah.
you were a little bit older and 18 months.
Yeah.
That's yeah, I mean, listen, as a childbirth attorney, I'm a low risk, very
Yeah.
low risk
Yeah.
person because of what I've seen. I would definitely say that was a good choice.
Yeah. And that's kind of just that's how I felt. I'm like, listen, if this is the least, I don't need to have a vaginal birth that doesn't it's not something that I've like necessarily needed to have. Like I just want a healthy baby, and that's kind of where my mindset was. Um oh my gosh. All right. You gave us so much information. This conversation was amazing. As we start to wrap up, what advice or message would you like to leave our listeners with, especially those who are expecting parents, or even maybe aspiring authors?
Oh, sure. Listen, childbirth and having a baby is such a powerful, life-changing moment. And I know everybody wants to go, I'm pregnant, so I'm going to go buy the cute clothes. I'm going to get my nursery ready. What stroller am I going to buy? But I'm telling you, as a childbirth attorney and what I have seen over the years, getting ready for that big day, getting ready to make sure you can enjoy that powerful moment is so important. Um, because again, I mean, you never stop being a parent
Mm-mm.
ever. I mean, from the day you hold your precious baby. So just getting ready for it, understanding even things that are in my book, understanding other things that are not in my book, just getting ready for the big day and being able to make those great decisions so you can enjoy that moment. It's just, I can't emphasize it, enough. And then in terms of author, listen, writing a book was never on my radar, ever, until that day that I talked about during the podcast where my life kind of stopped. I was out of I was out of the grind. I was having this human moment out of the grind. And it just all of a sudden, like, it was like this aha moment where I knew I had information that can help people and help families, have a healthy baby. So, if you ever just kind of like, wait a minute, what do I know? What do
Yeah.
Is there something I know that could help? I mean, listen, parenting books, I read a bunch of parenting books. Do you have
Right.
advice to people like me? Write it down if you're, a really good parent. If there's a job that you've had for a while, or if there's something you've learned, or if it's how you're teaching kids or raising kids or self-help, I mean, anything, but just trying to figure out if there was something you can write down or whatnot, to kind of put out there, almost to, help people and make the world a better place. The, it's I'm telling you, the response I've gotten from my book is almost overwhelming. I mean, again, you can go on Amazon and just look at my Amazon reviews. I mean, these people, I mean, they
I'm
refer to
so
my book like
grateful.
it's the Bible. One of my first reviews was in Gina We Trust, and I'm like,
Yeah.
oh my,
Oh.
and I'm just like, and
But it is so, like, when I was pregnant, the thing that I was looking for is like advice from other moms essentially. And it's like you have to
Mhm.
try to like gather, okay, like what they said, I don't think I want that. What they said, oh, I like what they say. But to have some hard facts in front of you and just be like, this is what I need to prepare. Thank you for answering all the questions
Aw,
that, everybody needs.
yes. Oh, trust me, it was. But for the other authors, there's something. Tell you,
Mhm.
you'll find your calling. You don't even have to be looking, but it'll just one day kind of come to you. So I would definitely recommend it. It's a great feeling, and thank you for your kind words.
All right, so that's going to bring us to the end of another episode of the Running Wine Mom. Thank you again, Gina, so much for sharing a wealth of knowledge, your personal experiences, and your unique perspective with us. Listeners, be sure to grab a copy of Gina's book, A Parent's Guide to a Safer Childbirth, which I will link in the notes. Obviously, for valuable insights to ensure a healthy and safe delivery for you and your baby, and prepare as much as you can. And as always, if you enjoyed this episode, please consider subscribing, leaving a review, and sharing it. You can follow me on Instagram at the running wine mom _. And Gina, where can listeners find you?
Oh, on Instagram at Gina Mundy, and obviously my website has everything on it. So ginamundy.com, because right now this is like the first episode I've mentioned it on. In this year 2024, I want to release a course too, because my book
That's,
is really on childbirth. So I'm gonna throw some pregnancy stuff in there that I've learned, and just maybe taking stuff that's in my book to the next level for those
yeah,
parents who are interested.
that'll
So
be
you
so
got to
helpful.
that'll be all information that you'll be able to, find on the website.
Wonderful. All right. Well, so thank you so much for joining us today. Remember, you are strong, you are capable, and you are all amazing. Until next time, keep running, keep sipping, and keep embracing the joy of motherhood. Cheers, and I will be back next Tuesday. Yay. Thank you. That was
Oh,
awesome.
great episode. You are so good at this.
Thank you. I don't know. I'm always like, I don't know if this is, but no, you were amazing. Oh my gosh, all the information. I was like, it was wonderful. Seriously, like this is super
Aw.
informative, and I think everybody's going to gain a lot. I gained a lot from it, and I'm not even having any more kids.
You're I
I'm
know
like, oh,
I was gonna be like, shower gift.
yeah,
I get a lot
yeah,
of it's funny because it's a shower gift. Like people will put that on my reviews. Like
yeah.
I read this great shower gift.
Oh, that's
So
a really good. I am going to two baby showers this month, so actually, well, next month I'll get that for them. Honestly, I didn't even think about that,
I
which is
know
like
I
so
should put that in.
silly.
I should be saying that on the podcast.
Yeah,
Shower gift, baby shower gift.
I could probably, let me write it down. I could probably see if I could add it in somewhere.
Ooh,
But that's we'll see if or I can like on my story or something, put it as a good
there you go.
shower gift too. Okay, so I think your episode will be in like not this Tuesday, but the following Tuesday. And then I'll just reach out to you and I'll one of your pictures I'll put as a picture of the book, and then another picture of whatever you choose, if that's okay. So I'll
Yeah.
reach out to you and I'll send you all the links and everything as well.
Awesome. Yeah, and I'll make sure I share it on my social media